Okay, we should be on now. I don't know why that happened. That happened in Discord as well. So much for stream improvements this week. So, welcome everybody to the counter clipping stream, which we should now have sound. Please confirm that for me in the chat, if you don't mind. I do appreciate that. I'm not sure why that happened. I do actually know why that happened. It's Windows. Okay, very good. So, again, welcome everybody to, let's welcome everyone who has popped up so far. We have this new thing. It's not new. I just found it, so we're going to do it. Welcome to Charles Latora, Dale Brady, Iggy Critical, Jeffrey Wesovich, Jim Jennings, John Longshore, Kaiser Bill, Ken Colby, Lee Grant, Lynn Pratt, Matt Taylor, Pete 41, Peter Rushton, Purple Norseman, Sean O'Keefe, Stephen Reynolds, and William McGinnis. So we have a new thing that we can do this week. So, new camera mount. Thank you, patrons, by the way. Please check out the Patreon. It's linked in the video description if you would like to help support Ardwulf's Lair. Thanks to the patrons, I managed to get a camera mount, which the camera is on now, and I won't move it around during the stream because it'll look like crap. But and I have a light, which is on its second to lowest setting behind the camera. It's not a ring light, but I think it will work a little better, and it has... we may be experimenting with it in the coming week or two because it came with a number of filters that you could put in front of it to adjust the tone of the light. So we might try something about that. So, anyway, we are clipping the brand new Korean War. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. And we're drinking Stranahan's Blue Peak. I have seen Stranahan's is a micro distillery in Colorado. This I've had it before. I've had it on the stream before. It's quite good. I have seen it here in Ohio, but not that particular type of Stranahan's. Pete, if you have the deluxe counter clipper, I'm not all that surprised. My counter clipper works fine. What we have here is the Korean War. These are these new printer Korean War counters that Compass Games sent out. They are an absolute bear to remove from the sheet, and they are so thick they will not fit in my 2.5mm or 2mm clippers, which means I know they won't fit in my 3mm clippers. So we are doing it old school here tonight. So we'll see how far I get before my old man hands takes over and I can't do this anymore. I don't know that this is necessarily any harder on the hands than the dedicated tool. I'm just not used to it. So you're right. I do need the branded hat, and I can do that through Teespring too. I'm gonna actually work on that. The only difficulty with it is that I need to create a new graphic to go on it, and I have not done that yet. So the Korean War has been out. I did get the replacement counter sheets. I got 2 replacement counter sheets necessary because of registration issues. I am hearing, as general news, I'm adding this week a number of things this week. I'm adding a general news section. It's not like meant to replace whatever wargaming news you might follow. It is meant to give me the opportunity to summarize and give my opinion on any news that may have occurred. So I am not the only one, but not everybody had registration problems on their Korean War counters. Some people did get replacement counters that appear to have been from a different run of counters and are a bit thinner, which is not a problem as long as the counters all match, I guess. And I don't know if that's the case. So if you got like mix and match counters, let me know. Okay, Jim Jennings asked what's on everyone's table, so throw that in the chat. And not War, but Murder from Against the Odds magazine. That actually looks quite good. That is Cold Harbor, as I recall. I'm not doing an orange hat. I could tell you that already. The color palette of Ardwulf's Lair is black and white, so it will be black or white. And probably the hat would probably be black because I don't wear white. Because if I do, I look like I was crawling around under the car in 2 minutes. Even if I did nothing except sit in a chair. So, okay, so what do we got for this week? That's last week. Okay, show notes for 517. Okay, please do check out the merch store, also linked in the video description, and the Patreon. I really appreciate the fact that I get to make these little upgrades, and I think I would like to get more little upgrades, because I think I want a second one, actually probably 3 of these lamps, so I can get 3-point lighting going on. And I like these because they're completely adjustable. They go from super low, which they are right now, all the way up to, whoa, oh my god! The camera adjusted pretty well to that, actually. And then this is the lowest setting, and it's practically off. So we're going very low for now. I've been watching videos about other people, not necessarily in wargaming, and how they make videos. And so I'm feeling super motivated to make those improvements at this time. So, okay, so those of you who are aware of the San Diego Historical Games Convention, that starts on Friday. I don't have a link for it because I'm lazy, but if you just Google San Diego Historical Games Convention, you will find it. It is $10 for the ticket, but you don't pay for events each. So your ticket cost covers all your events, and you get to hobnob with all kinds of wargaming hobby luminaries like Mark Herman and Volko Ruhnke and Brian Train and all that. So that's pretty cool. And I think I'm signed up for one of Volko's things. I think of Nevsky, which is this week's unboxing video. Actually, it's been sitting in the pile forever. The new segment is news, wargaming news. What has happened this week? Well, fortunately, we don't have. I'm glad I don't have any untimely passings to report this week after last week's passing of Rick Barber. I have left the late pledge link in the video description if you want a late pledge on A Most Fearful Sacrifice, which has a very gorgeous Rick Barber map. Apparently it's not going to be Rick's last released map because Rebel Fury from GMT, which is Mark Herman design, has Rick Barber maps as well. And Mark mentioned on Twitter, he's like, what? I just got these from Rick like a couple days ago, and now he's gone. So please do consider looking at the gorgeous and enormous Most Fearful Sacrifice. The game is also solid, so I do not think anyone who picks up on it will regret that purchase. Okay, I did not want to overdo it on events, so I'm running 2 OCS boot camps, and I get signed up for 2 other things. The Stonewall, as far as I can tell, they have not made an announcement because they don't. The Stonewall Jackson's Way 2 reprint is shipping from Multiman Publishing, so we're gonna circle back to that situation again later in the show, possibly in a segue from most disappointing nonsense that has appeared in the wargaming hobby of late. And Compass, on their live stream on Thursday, I think, John Krantz announced 3 new pre-orders. Now, normally I would probably just let this pass without comment. However, one of those is a game that I've been looking forward to for some time. So the 3 new pre-orders from Compass are okay, so in order of ascending interest of mine, Sniper Kill Confirmed, which is a solitaire game in which you play a sniper. You can play individual scenarios, which play relatively quickly, or you can play a whole campaign. That is probably not something I am super into, to be completely honest. The pieces look nice. And it looks like it will be an interesting game for those who are into that. I'm not interested in that topically, and I'm not really in the market for that kind of solitaire game either. So I'm probably going to take a pass on that. The next one is called No Peace Without Honor, which is in the No Peace Without Spain system, and shares an aesthetic and a system. It is a card-driven point-to-point game. It is called No Peace Without Honor, and it is about the wars of Louis XIV, the Sun King. That is a super interesting and enormously underhandled topic in this hobby. So I am actually super excited about that. And the third game is 1812 War on the Great Lakes Frontier. Now, some folks, not that many people watched it, but I actually did a video some time ago with the designer Ken Reppel. And Ken is a great guy, and I am very much looking forward to that game. It looks great. I feel like that is going to end up being my game on the War of 1812. So, all right. I mean, I like these counters, but man, they're super thick. They don't fit in my clipper, and a lot of them have registration problems. The registration problems do and don't bother me. On the one hand, you send an email to compassgames.com, say, Bill, my counters are messed up. Please send me new counters. Here's my address. And Bill will do that. And it's no problem. On the other hand, it's bad for Compass in the sense of they have to pay for shipping extra counters to people, and I don't want them to have to be put in that position. So it's unfortunate. So I talked to Ken about that, and the theory is that they really didn't go inland because they hugged the coasts and rivers. They were tied to the naval power, which actually is really interesting, and is, of course, a big naval component in that game. And it's kind of cool for me because I can literally point to where I live now and where I grew up on that map. So that's kind of cool too, and that's not typical for games at that scale, because really, the War of 1812 and the French and Indian War are really the only wars that have been fought over the territory of Ohio in the last couple of hundred years. I've heard good things about Mr. Madison's War. I am super pumped about Gilbert's new game, War for America, or The War for America as well, and that's on pre-order from Compass as well. I've already talked about the most fearful sacrifice. This week's channel of the week is Dad vs. Son. There is a link to that in the video description. I was watching one of their videos earlier, and I said, I do not understand how they only have like 500 or so subscribers. So please go subscribe to Dad vs. Son. It is a very difficult channel to find on YouTube if you search for it because of the title, but there's a link in the video description. So go check that out. They have really, really good playthrough content of all kinds of interesting things. So, Kaiser Bill, okay, hold on a second. Says he will not buy Sniper from Compass because of the mechanic that you have to complete missions to get better equipment, resemblance to real warfare video games. That's what that's based on, to be completely honest. That doesn't bother me necessarily, but does that trap you in a whirling cul-de-sac of failure if you don't complete the missions? That's a potential gameplay concern, and I can't argue with your realism concern there either. So, Pete Rushton says he understands these Korean counters were a one-off print trial with a new company that won't be used again because of the issues. I am in agreement with that. I think, honestly, I'm unwilling to say there's no counter design issue. There may not be a big enough gutter on these counters to absorb registration drifting a little bit. That's possible, but there's no question that this has caused issues, and it's costing them money. And as somebody that likes a good chunk of their stuff, I would like Compass to do well and not have big issues because they have to keep fixing problems. So. Yeah, so the thinner counters are the ones in the warehouse, apparently, and I mean, when I got my replacements, I got the thicker ones. They're the same thickness as the other ones, but they're still really close. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show this on the camera. They're still pretty close. The print is still pretty close to the edge of the counter, and I mean, I wouldn't send a complaint letter about it, but and actually on the back, if you look at the counter rears, and this was a replaced counter sheet, by the way. The registration is still a bit off. So if they're not going with these these printers again, or die cutters, or whatever they are, I will understand. I would kind of depends on how they reacted to complaints, right? If they waffled and stuff, or if they said, no, you know what, that's a problem, we'll fix it, then that's a little different. But I don't know what the collation system at Compass looks like nowadays. For games printed in China, generally they are going to be collated and boxed and shrink wrapped and all that in China. So there's nobody like here in a warehouse putting the games together. That is something that happens at MMP because MMP prints domestically. Compass may be doing it with some games and not with others, because they print some games domestically and not others. So it's possible they could be doing it either way. You're totally right. If I'm going to film at this angle with this camera angle, we definitely need a branded hat. I can also, in theory anyway, get the webcam on the desk surface, so you could be looking at my hands instead of my sourpuss of a face. A lot of this week has been consumed with home and garden stuff, so if I'm grumbling about my wrists being sore, that's why. The good news is the tomatoes, the hot peppers, a bunch of herbs, and a bunch of flowers that I don't know what they are have been planted, so... I have not really taken any of the shorts from Kickstarter on anything, to be honest. I know a lot of people have, but I have not. But that's partially because I have been exceptionally selective about the Kickstarter projects that I have backed. Okay, so RPG campaigns. The new Traveler campaign will be starting this next Sunday, and not yesterday, which somehow I thought it was yesterday. So I will not have any news about that. We will have news about that next week. I am still working on something, but I'm kind of waffling and trying to figure out exactly how it's going to work right now. On the subject of RPGs, there is an RPG video coming on Tuesday. It is not the big one that I am working on. The big one that I am working on is the character creation walkthrough for Harnmaster 3rd Edition. I will tell you, I am approximately 8 hours of work into it. I have not shot a single frame of video yet. I have been working on the graphics and script. And I would estimate that I am probably about a third of the way through the graphics and script. And then we have to do the filming and editing. The good news is, since there's a script, the filming itself should go relatively smoothly. And hopefully the editing won't take forever either. I'm going to be, again, watching videos on how to do this efficiently and try to minimize the giant pain in the ass. Hethwell mentions, good to see 16th and 17th century. Yeah, so it's a period that's not well covered. The wars of Louis the 16th, Louis the 14th are not well covered at all. And Louis got himself into several things. So then that is a well-regarded system. Thank you, John Longshore, for returning 2 of those games to my collection. The third of which is No Peace Without Spain itself, and courtesy of John, it will be in the next giveaway. So let me mention that. It is projected by my YouTube analytics tool that I use, because it's free, that I will be hitting 4,000 subscribers in June. So, not going to pin it down any closer date-wise than that, but once I do, there will be a big giveaway. And like a big giveaway. I will give away at least 3 or 4 things. I don't know that I have an RPG giveaway at this exact moment, but I might come up with something. And I will definitely be giving away a number of war games, so bear that in mind. All right, so let's see what we have in the chat. All right, so let me segue into biggest wargame disappointments, and I think we're leaning into either they're disappointments with a designer, maybe a designer demonstrated. I can't think of an example off the top of my head. Well, I could, but I'm not going to. Of a designer that turned out to be a dick, or a game that you were looking forward to that turned out to be a turd, or a company that you had always supported turning out to have disastrously bad customer service policies. So I'll start. Feel free to put your stories in the chat and we'll talk through them. So I got a couple of emails from our friends at Multiman. These are automated emails, but they came from Scott Blanton. Now, Scott is the owner of the Gamers Armory in North Carolina, and also the business manager at Multiman Publishing, and he has not been directly involved in the MMP saga in which I found myself embroiled and which you all heard about a couple of weeks ago. I got a couple of now I probably knee-jerkingly said cancel all my pre-orders, and they said no problem, and I got cancellation confirmations on all the pre-orders that I had placed on the new Multi-Man website. But after we talked, this was this week sometime, I actually got an email addressed from Scott. Again, I'm sure it's an automated email, saying there's been a problem with your pre-order for Stonewall Jackson's Way 2 and Hood Strikes North, and please call and get it fixed. I'm like, okay. So, a couple things. First of all, when this topic came up on the Multi-Man Publishing fan page on Facebook, and somebody who presumably heard it here went and said, hey, I'm hearing there's problems. Maybe, we should talk about that. And I said, look, I had problems. At least 6 people now have come to me and explained that they also had problems locating either their pre-orders or their accounts from the old Multi-Man system. So just play it safe and call. And Brian Yaus jumped right on the comment and said, don't call. If you call, we won't have anything. We won't be able to do anything except answer the phone. I'm like, wait a minute. You told me that they were office workers. Do you not have office workers, or are the office workers doing the shipping too? So, I mean, you told us to do this if you had questions or problems with the old website orders. Do you not want us to call, or do you want us to call? Or do you just want to abandon those orders that you lost? In addition to that, it has come to my attention that if you call Multi-Man, you may get somebody on the phone. I don't know. I mean, Brian's not answering the phone. Scott's not answering the phone. So I don't know what's going on there. But the folks who answer the phone will tell people, no, there have been no problems. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know where you're hearing that. Okay, so that's called lying, and it's not generally considered a good business practice or the right thing to do. So I am at a low ebb at my patience with Multi-Man Publishing at this time. I appreciate that Brian kind of stepped in, and Brian Yaus kind of stepped in and tried to smooth things over. That effort is appreciated, but I'm still unwilling to participate in their pre-order system. I'll place a live order with them. I'm not saying I'm never buying their products again. I'm not telling anybody watching not to buy their products. The fact is, I like a lot of their products. I will continue to do stuff with OCS and with OCS, Great Campaigns, the American Civil War, and GTS. And I'm still buying the ASL stuff, but I mean, I'll buy the stuff from, either when it's out, if it's something that's out already, or if I want to pre-order it, I will pre-order it from NWS. And by the way, those of us, and everybody has this story, those of us who have had issues with delays getting stuff shipped from NWS, Chris has talked about that on one of the Facebook groups recently, and he's working on process improvements to help him get orders through faster, and apparently it is making a difference. Still probably not the fastest place to get stuff, but all right, so let's see what we have here. Best games. Alan Salazar asks for best games on the English Civil War. I have. So which English? I mean, there's a couple of wars in England that kind of fit the description of English Civil War, and I think it means the Royalists and Roundheads Civil War, but. So I'm a little unclear on that. The fact is, I don't have a recommendation for that. The musket and pike system from GMT is pretty well regarded, and it treats those battles at the tactical or grand tactical level, and I have one of those on pre-order at some point, whenever that dual pack or whatever it is comes out. The only other English Civil War game, the only one I have at the moment actually is, that's not War of the Roses, because I have a couple games on that, is the Creprini Bridge scenario that showed up in S&T some years ago, and that is not, shall we say, a well-regarded game. Fortunately, I paid $1 for it. So there's that. I mean, okay, so I don't know if I said this, in the previous story. It would not have been that big a deal, or I don't think particularly expensive, to import all of the old website orders into the new website system. That is, from a technical standpoint, that is just basic database work. I don't think it would have cost tens of thousands of dollars to make that migration. We're not talking about, I mean, you're not talking about a huge amount of data, I'm guessing, but the fact is that the amount of data you're talking about at this level probably isn't important. That's only important if you're like Microsoft pushing around Microsoft amounts of data. So that's something that could have been done and avoided all this problem and embarrassment on their part. I'm not mad about it at this point. I'm just laying it out like here's what happened, and people can make their own decisions. And I've told you the decision that I'm making, so I'm not pre-ordering from them again. I will continue to support those games of theirs, which are numerous, that I like. Okay, so who said they bought Summer Storm and is thinking of framing the maps? I think that's a great idea. They're gorgeous maps. Honestly, I think that Most Fearful Sacrifice... I mean, bear in mind, they're both Battle of Gettysburg games. I like the Most Fearful Sacrifice map better, and I've looked at the Summer Storm map. I thought the Summer Storm was Civil War Campaign series, and it's not. It's Rick's own design, actually. And frankly, I think that alone makes it pretty interesting. Stigler, worst disappointment for me, North German plane. Oh yeah, that's the Spitzer shit. That's the Spitzer entry in the Central Front series, and it's got issues integrating with the rest of the series, is my understanding. That is not a series that I am into or am particularly interested in. So do pay attention more closely to people talking about it who know what they're talking about. That's not me. Iggy Critical says, is Siege of Ismail a good siege game? I will rely on the chat to comment on that. I am not familiar with it. Little Dev says he's new to the stream. What's up with the counterclipping thing? So, board war games, historically, have tended to have these little cardboard chits. And when you tear them out, I'll see if I can get a good shot of this. When you tear them out of the sprue, you get these dog ears on these. These are really bad, by the way. Really bad dog ears. So this thing definitely needs to be clipped. And I'm just, the imprecision of doing it with a nail clipper just rubs me the wrong way now. So I'm using a nail clipper because they're too thick to fit into my corner rounder that I typically use for these. All right. Stigler says, second worst TSR Butcher's Terrible Swift Sword. So let me ask this, because you're more familiar with the series than me. Are there substantial rule changes between the Spitzer version and the SPI version, or did they just make the components all much, much more hideous? Because Stigler is not wrong about that map. It is an ugly map. And in fact, all of the direct reprints that TSR did from SPI, so we're talking Terrible Swift Sword, Wellington's Victory, Barbarossa, those are all very ugly maps. The maps for the ETO and PTO games are, I think, better, but those are not straight reprints. Those are substantial expansions of the original game. And at one point, I would like to do some video on those, because I actually think those are underrated games. Alan Salazar says the biggest wargame disappointment was S&T's Scrimmage. Well, that's certainly understandable if you expected a wargame out of it. That came out like 1972, so that, you're dating yourself by even mentioning it, to be honest. It was very early on. Messin' Up Rule says he's disappointed with Twilight Imperium 4 after playing Space Empires 4X. I like Twilight Imperium 3 a great deal. I have not played Twilight Imperium 4. It is a very different, at least Twilight Imperium 3, is a very different game from Space Empires 4X. It to me plays much more like it's really not a Euro. I mean, it's very, but it has some strong Euro ideas. I won't scream too much if somebody calls it a war game, but it's definitely, it doesn't feel like a war game to me. It feels more like I mean, it is an Ameritrash game. It is, in a lot of ways, the quintessential Ameritrash game. Or at least is emblematic of the Ameritrash thing. And like I said, I like the third edition a lot. It is an enormous project to get it. I mean, because it's not a two-player game, right? You really want at least 4 or 5 people, and you'd rather have 6 or 7. It takes 2 hours to set it up, and it takes 8 to 12 hours to play. So it is a game that I reliably play once every 5 years or so. It is. However, I have a lot of fun when I do. I have not bought the 4th edition, and I'm not sure I'm going to, just because it's super expensive, and I'm not doing that right now. And but my understanding is that it streamlines it more so that it plays faster, which is, it's still not a fast playing game though. So if you want to, you want to experience like that in 2 hours or less, you're not going to get it. You might get it out of Space Empires 4X, depending on the scenario, which has a huge variety of scenarios. So the stream, Patrick Pictures is saying this, but the stream is me clip encounters and have a fun group chat in a relaxed atmosphere. And there is a topic which is something that I will kind of circle into and out of as the evening goes on. So I'm going to make a camera adjustment. It's a little tight. That's a little better. Okay. So, John, you're saying you ordered King and Country and they sent you Red Factories? I expect Red Factories to go out of print before King and Country in this case. No, I mean, I would tell them. I would probably email Chris and work it out. Maybe end up buying an extra copy or something. Kaiser Bill says his favorite Ameritrash game is the original Milton Bradley Fortress America. That's the one in that original Game Master series that I did not like, actually. I liked Conquest of the Empire. I liked Shogun a lot. I liked Broadsides and Boarding Parties was okay. And Axis and Allies I wasn't a big fan of, but I certainly didn't hate it at the time. So... hold on. Wellington's... Okay, so, yeah. So the Wellington's victory from Decision Games is a separate thing from the old TSR version, which is a different version of the old SPI game. I actually have the SPI Wellington's... the TSR Wellington's victory, and it's ugly. But the Decision Wellington's victory is a totally different game that a lot of people have had negative things to say about. So let me mention, let's see here. Let's talk about pulling some stuff up. The War Room over at ID Jester's channel. That's on Saturday. Go check that out. He's going to have a top 10 Desert Island war games or something along those lines this week. So it's a great question about, I could probably do a whole episode topic for this, but I'm not that lazy today. Where's my counter trays? Where did I put the counter trays I was going to use for this? There they are. All right. So, top 10 games that I would want on a desert island. And ID Jester is a big stickler about this. So, it's like games, you can't count the supplements, you just get what's in the box. But you get what's in the box. So I put a little bit of thought into it and came up with a list of 10 games that are my personal selections if I only had 10 games to pick from without expansions. I mean, I guess I could count expansions, but I would be counting them as a separate slot in that 10 games. So here's mine. Number 1 is Roads to Gettysburg 2. We're back to the great campaigns of the American Civil War. And I picked Roads to Gettysburg 2 specifically because it is the one box volume of the series that has the largest amount of content. There's 3 modules, so you have 3 separate campaigns. You have Antietam, Gettysburg, and Fort Stevens and Monocacy and that kind of stuff. So you got a lot to do in there. Oh God, Kickstarter up front, you guys got boned on that. I'm so sorry about that. I mean, the maps generally are... Joe Youst does most of those maps, and I like Joe's map as a map artist a lot. So, my number 2 was the World in Flames Collector's Edition Deluxe. It all comes in one box, right? It's got expansions, but it all comes in a box, and I asked for clarification on this. And again, that's another thing where it's kind of a lifestyle game in the sense that you could just make that your whole hobby if you wanted to, and you really wouldn't feel the lack of options. Number 3 is SPQR Deluxe. The current edition contains all of the expansion material from SPQR, I should say, and is therefore a very rich box set, and I think it costs about $100 now, but I do have it, and it is a wonderful package, and it is a great game system, and it is my entry for the Great Battles of History series. Tony's Board Life, who I emailed earlier about this. Tony, I hope you got my email. So, see, I'm having to literally wrestle these out of the sheet. They are not easy to get out. And I don't know why the dog's acting up either. It's probably some crime happening in the area. That's possible. If I'm walking her with my wife, because I got to say this kind of stuff to some people, and she starts barking, I'll assume that she is smelling some human remains at somewhere in the neighborhood. So, Whiff Collector's Edition is fantastic. Yes, I could X-Acto these out, but I don't have the X-Acto. I could use a rotary cutter, too. Number 4 is Napoleon's Last Gamble. And I picked that. I'm going to have to cut some of these, aren't I? Yep, I do. Die cutting not all the way through the sheet. More problems with these Korean War counters. I really feel like they took a lot of extra time in development for this and got it right. And it becomes extra disappointing when there are easily... tore it right loose. I don't know if you can see that corner of that counter. I'll just have to live with it. I guess I do have extra sheets, but these counters are terrible. So they don't really do that. And actually the dog gets along pretty well with the cats. So number 4 was Napoleon's Last Gamble. I picked Napoleon's Last Gamble out of all the titles in the Library of Napoleonic Battles series because it has there's 5 battles in the set, 4 of which are the 4 battles that you know about in the Waterloo campaign, and the other one is La Rochelle, something like that happens later on. But you have a good meaty extended campaign game, and that's not always true with those games because sometimes the battles take place over too big a period where the maps don't line up. We do have 4 cats and a dog, so just to clarify that. Somebody mentioned that Pete Bartlett. Thanks for stopping by, and I'm glad you're here because if you want to retort to any of the things I've said, please do. Pete is the MMP social media guru, so he is more closely positioned than the rest of us to the inner workings at MMP. I have had my own estimates of how many games MMP can get out the door in a given day, and it's not as low as 15, but it's not as high as 100 to 120 either. And exactly what the logistical bottleneck is I don't know. Is it people collating? Is it people boxing? Is it the size of the vehicle that they use to transport the stuff to the post office. Is that even how it works? I don't know. I used to work in shipping, so I have a fairly good, for a long time actually, so you have a fairly good sense of what that pipeline looks like. And MMP, and this is something I like, by the way, ships pre-orders in order that they arrived. So, like, my pre-order for the Third Winter that got canceled was probably going to be a day one pre-order. So, and I am not counting on, I mean, yeah, I was involved in the playtest, but I got involved in OCS and OCS playtesting in the Third Winter playtesting era. So I've never been in the loop to get a free copy. And my understanding, based on what the local people are saying, is don't count on a free copy, no matter how substantial your playtest contributions were. And I can tell you that I did have a playtest contribution, but it was in playtest for years and years and years, and there are absolutely tons of people with a greater playtest contribution to that game than mine. I have one of the scenarios, the second SS Panzer Corps Strikes Back scenario, has a fixed victory condition, and that is because of me. That's my contribution to the playtesting on that. So, SPI's Commando. I was looking, I found a PDF copy of an old Ian Livingstone book called Dicing with Dragons, and it's long gone. I used to have the book, and it was, a book that taught me a lot about what I knew at the time about a bunch of different RPGs. But in there is a big list of RPGs, and I noticed that Livingstone lists Commando as an RPG and doesn't waffle about it at all. So, list it as a straight up RPG, along with Universe and Dragon Quest, which were, but not Dallas. He did not list Dallas. I will say that in the current light, the Chinese counters are indistinguishable from the North Korean counters. Color-wise, but I'm not playing under game quality lights here. I'm lighting is set up to look good on camera, more or less. The drink this evening is Stranahan's Blue Peak single malt Colorado whiskey, and it is quite nice, and I am very pleased with it. And I really am kind of hoping to get another bottle of scotch at some point here soon. What did I almost buy? I almost bought a Glendronach that one of the local liquor stores had. And I balked at the price, basically, because we spent a lot of money on home and garden stuff over the weekend, let me put it that way. Iggy Critical says he's getting rid of all of his coin games except for Cuba Libre. That's interesting. Cuba Libre is one that I didn't pick up because I'm not sufficiently interested in the subject. For me, I mean, this is generally true of war games in general. What drives my desire to have the game is my interest in generally speaking, my interest in the topic. They're probably not, Matt, I'm guessing that I'd like Pete, by all means, answer and correct me if this is wrong. I doubt they're telling Pete that. But I do believe that Third Winter will start shipping fairly soon, as in a matter of a couple of weeks. That's my belief. Colorado whiskey. No, it's a malt. It's a single malt whiskey actually, and it's pretty good. It's my so Glendronach is a heavily sherried whiskey that has been compared to both Macallan and Aberlour. I have had the regular 12-year or whatever it is expression of Aberlour and did not care for it. There is also the Aberlour Abenoth, I think that's how it's pronounced, which is said to be quite a bit better, but it is also about $30 a bottle more expensive, so I haven't tried it. I'm more likely to buy the Glendronach because I've heard good things about it. And frankly, at $80 a bottle, Macallan 12 is too expensive. So... John, I do feel like I do feel like you're crediting Pete with more influence than he may actually have. So, I do know that Patrick Pictures mentions that he thinks coin systems are trying to fit too many incongruous topics, and I can't argue with that. But there are, I mean, it's the stuff people are working on, and there is a ton of coin stuff in the works. I thought there was a Russian Civil War coin game in the works, but I asked Volko about that, and he said I don't know anything about it. So the answer is probably not. I do know that the Troubles game, the game on the Troubles in Ireland, which I thought was going to be a straight coin game at one point, is now going to be a coin-inspired game released by Compass. And I don't know if that's available from last time. Tony, you're drinking the Glenlivet Caribbean Reserve. I killed that last week. And I won't buy... It was like $36 a bottle or something like that, so it's pretty cheap for single malt. And I wasn't totally displeased with it, but, I've tried it. I thought it was okay. I'm going to buy something different this time. I like to try different stuff. So, what I should do is just buy Kalila and just be happy with that because it's my favorite, but I want to try different stuff. Red Dust Rebellion looks neat, and I am very much, it allows them to, that topic allows the designer, whoever that is, to tailor the fictional background, because it's a fictional background, to the coin mechanics. And I think that's really, really cool. And it sounds very like The Expanse, which I love. So I am happy to find games that are Expanse inspired. That's perfectly okay by me. And the Expanse game from, I forget who the publisher is, Upper Deck maybe. It's Jeff Engelstein game, and I have watched some reviews of it that were not particularly positive. So, Tony, I'd be curious to know if you have also tried Balvenie Caribbean Cask and what you think of that. I will tell you, I think it's fantastic. It's also relatively pricey, so I don't have any at the moment. So, but that was another one that I considered was Balvenie. I certainly think that so we're all so clear. I certainly think the MMP website, the new website, is a lot better. The old website was super primitive, and I'm glad they finally took the step to make that change. I'm just disappointed in the way. I'm not disappointed that there were technical problems. Okay, like I said, I've done this. There will be technical problems. It will happen. I expect it. I would expect it. I am disappointed in the customer service reaction of, no, there are no problems. It's your fault. And no, we're not going to fix it, because otherwise people will try and call in and say they had a pre-order, but they really didn't, and we'll have to give them the pre-order price, and it's a scam, and then it doesn't. Well, no. But you found my pre-order. So we've already established that you lost pre-orders. And then got shitty with people on the phone when you... when they said, no, I had a pre-order, you're not going to honor that price. And that's my problem. Not that they had technical glitches. Like I said, I expect the technical glitches. That kind of stuff happens. The Doublewood is a very, very reliable scotch. That's great stuff. Pappy Van Winkle, man, that's the most overrated whiskey literally the most overrated whiskey on the planet. So, the Peninsular War would be the ultimate coin game. No, I don't think so. Could it be done? Sure. I don't think you have real factional differences there. You have the occupying French forces, and you have the Spanish guerrillas, and then you have the Anglo-Portuguese forces, and then the Spanish forces. So, could you do that? Sure. And would it work? Maybe. But I also don't think it's a natural fit necessarily. I don't think there's enough asymmetry to get 4 factions. Now, as we've seen, coin games do not necessarily need 4 factions. There's Colonial Twilight, which is 2 factions, and there's a 3-faction game coming somewhere, and there's a 6-faction game coming from somewhere else. So, there's no particular reason why those games have to have 4 factions. We have already thoroughly established that they don't. So, anyway. Stigler, at some point, just so you know, we will have a worst gaming publisher topic. And I am sure that I don't know if Decision will be the worst gaming publisher. I mean, I can tell you that there's at least one gaming publisher that is far worse than Decision even dreams of being, and that is Fresno Games Association. But they weren't around that long. But they weren't around that long because they did such shabby work. So Decision at least has been around for a long time. They've done what feels like reasonably well with the magazines. Whether you think the games are any good or not is another story. But I do think the magazines are pretty solid. As you know, for reading material. Let me be clear about what I mean by that. All right, so last big disappointment from Stigler was Desert Fox Deluxe, which, yeah, it's generally agreed that they, in fact, did not do a great job on that. So, Diet Mountain Dew. I mistakenly bought regular Mountain Dew, which honestly tastes like church incense to me now. I have been drinking Diet Mountain Dew for a couple of years now, and I haven't touched regular soda of any kind, and the full sugar stuff is like, oh my god, this is weird. So, but I wasn't paying close enough attention, so I bought the full sugar stuff instead. Because it's not even real sugar, it's high fructose corn syrup, so don't get your hopes up. All right, now Stigler likes lots of stuff, just not things from Decision, that's all. So, I mean, a couple of those Fresno things are desirable as collector's items because of the components. So the Eagle and the Sun, which is basically their version of War in the Pacific. I mean, you can look at it and see it's their version of War in the Pacific. It's the exact same map. But it's a nice map. It's a, you know, especially for its era. The counters are nice, and the map is nice, and the rules are a complete fiasco. So, it goes for $150 or so. I do feel like Gerardo. I do feel like the magazine articles are good and make the magazine worth reading. It's not just a recap of Wikipedia. As somebody who has done military history stuff, not for game design, just so we're clear on that, but as a history major, there's not that much really good in-depth information on Wikipedia. There just isn't. On some subjects, but not many, you can find other sources that have good in-depth information, but not many. D-Day is one of the rare exceptions. You can get pretty good D-Day information off the internet. In almost every case, for serious research, you do need to be looking at other sources, like non-online sources, and the magazine articles are better than, say, Wikipedia or your typical online source. So I will vouch for the magazines, just the games that come in the magazines. You can, of course, if you don't know, you can get the magazines at Barnes & Noble or whatever, and you don't have to get them with the games in them, so you can just get the magazines. Alright, just murdering these things, man. I think we're going to do about one sheet tonight, because I'm making slower progress than it would be typical, because A, I'm doing it with the friggin' nail clipper, and B, I'm literally wrestling these out of the sheet. So So one, I've never positioned myself as a critic. Okay, I don't. On the one hand, that's nonsense. Okay, I am in fact a critic, but what I don't do is reviews. Because it's a huge time commitment. I mean, for war games specifically, for let's say movies, I could do a movie. I could watch a movie and write a movie review. Okay, that's going to cost me 2 hours to watch the movie and maybe 4 to 8 hours to write the review. You can't do that with most games, and especially a war game. I mean, sometimes these things take 200 hours to play. Am I giving a war game? Am I giving this that takes 20 hours to play a fair shake if I've only played it once or twice? I don't think I am. And this becomes this huge commitment. So I'm not doing reviews. I'll tell you what I think. I'll give you my opinion. And as is the case with good criticism, I think people will get used to my tastes and understand where they intersect with your tastes and be able to tell from whether I like something or not. So I guess I am doing reviews, because that's really what it's about. It's about me telling you what I think and why, and then you being able to take that information and what you know of my tastes, just like you did with Roger Ebert, and determining, yeah, I'll probably like that, or no, I probably won't like that, or no, that looks terrible, I'm not going to go do that. So, Matt, I will tell you this. I think Stigler is too hard on decision. While I am not saying that anything that he has specifically said is wrong, they do a lot of things that I don't like or approve of. But they also do have some games that I really do like. I like the Goss series and I like the D-Day series, and some of their SPI classics I think are worthwhile. Some, not all. And Joe Miranda, I think, is a good designer who's done some stuff that's turned out to be super duper rushed, but has also done, I think, some good and interesting stuff too. Pappy Van Winkle's not even a real distillery. It's made by some random distillery, I think by Buffalo Trace. It's just a weeded bourbon that got marketed and goes for $1,000 a bottle now because they only make several hundred bottles a year. It's ludicrous. I mean, just go buy Weller's or I mean, even Maker's Mark is a weeded bourbon. It's not that much better. Critical Hit has a reputation for doing extremely sloppy and ill-advised things. That's a good point, though. I tell you what. Let's save this discussion for the worst wargaming publishers episode, and I'll try not to make it about Multiman. How about that? Just don't give me any more reasons to complain. There is going to be a mini Goss game in, I think, late this year in a World at War magazine, which is going to be about something in France 1940. So I'm definitely in for that. And hopefully it will have spent several years in development, so there's no reason for it to be messed up. I will have video on that when that occurs. All right, so we've got all those. We got all the full-strength Chinese divisions now. Whew. Okay, John Krantz, thanks for stopping by. You missed where I was talking about your new pre-order announcements earlier. So, Petrick Pictures mentions the Salvadoran Civil War, which would be an interesting topic. A lot of those Latin American conflicts would actually make good coin or coin-like games. Again, I'm reluctant to try and fit it into that four-faction formula, but I have been, other than these counters, I have been relentlessly positive on Compass Games this evening. Yes, Pappy Van Winkle, totally a hipster thing. Michael DePaul says he likes Goss, D-Day at Tarawa, and D-Day at Omaha Beach is my favorite of that series. I don't have Tarawa, but I do have Palelu and Omaha Beach, and those are very good. Very good games. And John Butterfield, right? I mean, trust in John Butterfield. Yeah, Kaiser Bill, neither are mine, and that's why I'm not spending $200 a bottle on scotch. Well, the other reason is I don't have $200 to spend on a bottle of scotch, but I have never personally spent more than about 85 or 90, something like that. I think Talisker is about the most expensive I've personally bought. ASL, American Civil War ASL from Critical Hit, that is one of the dumbest ideas to ever appear in wargaming. The D-Days are all solitaire. If you want a co-op experience, you can co-op D-Day at Omaha Beach because there's 2 divisions landing, so you could co-op it with 2 people. One person takes the 1st, and the other person takes the 29th. And you split the map at the boundary, and it completely works. But the Death Ride series does look interesting. I will agree. I have the Aris module in that game, and it's one of the reasons I haven't gotten into it. I'm super interested in their Normandy thing, but of course it's very expensive to get into. I mean, it's modular, so you can buy it a piece at a time, but I don't have the money for it right now. I'm not going to email them and beg for product, and I will have to just go to Consim World Expo and see it in action at some point in the near, I was about to say near future, but that's damned unlikely to happen this year. So just the way this year is shaping up so far. I'll be delighted to be wrong, but someday I will definitely go. Yeah, Tony, Mammal, that's exactly my point, I don't think I can do a real review of... I mean, even if I were reviewing, like, RPG adventures, I don't think I can review it unless I have run it, like, at least 2 or 3 times. And I don't even have a group, right, to play that stuff with. So, I don't think... I don't think reviews make sense. The Players Aid gets away with it because they do play all their stuff. Honestly, I think they probably only play them once, although that's not always true. But they have a huge competitive advantage against the rest of us because there's 2 of them. They can split their effort and still have tons of content coming out, and this is all me, right? I don't even have anybody to hold the camera. So, Pete, my condolences about that. But at least you got an awesome bottle of scotch out of it. I assume that a $200 bottle of Lefroy is, in fact, something awesome. And I love Lefroy. I like Lefroy a lot. John, I am over a year and a half tobacco free. Nicotine free is 7 months or something like that. So at no point will I be doing cigars. And if I do, you'll know that I'm off the wagon because I don't even want to go into the gas station anymore. Because if I get tempted, and I've done fine so far, but if I get tempted, then I'll start getting stressed about getting tempted, and then I'll need some stress relief. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm still vaping, but there's no nicotine in this, and there hasn't been for months. Doug, so I've actually done that. Angels and Demons by Dan Brown, friend of mine. Oh, you'll like this. Gives it to me, and I think I had read the Da Vinci Code at that point, and I'm like, this is pretty brainless, but at least it's easy to read, and I read it in like 2 hours. And it opens up with at CERN, the European Laboratory for Particle Physics, which has their own orbital space plane and magical anti-gravity elevator and antimatter bomb factory and all this ridiculous nonsense. And I threw the book into the wastebasket. It is garbage. So now I haven't seen the movie. They made it into a movie with Tom Hanks and some other people. So it's at one point, not this is secondhand, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm probably embellishing this only slightly. At one point in the movie, according to my understanding, there is a fight between Tom Hanks and the Pope in an out-of-control helicopter carrying an antimatter bomb. That is off the hook. So I kind of want to see the movie just because of that. Just to see a fist fight in an out-of-control helicopter between Tom Hanks and the Pope. And hopefully he's in full papal regalia, too, because that would just make it more awesome. Hat and everything. So, fantastic. All right. Can I clip counters with a cigar cutter? Very clumsily, I would think. Matt, they don't like everything. And I've talked to them about this. I agree with them. It's very hard to maintain your enthusiasm for doing content about games that you don't like. So they do, in fact, find stuff that they don't like. You just don't see videos on them because they don't want to make them. Because it's hard and thankless doing this anyway. And it's harder when you have to talk about sucky content. Unless you're somebody who's just a relentlessly negative jerk. And I can't think of anybody in this space for wargaming that is like that. There certainly are in video games. Enemy Action Ardennes is very well regarded, and somebody who may be featured in an upcoming channel of the week is doing high-quality Enemy Action Ardennes content. And I'm not being coy about telling you their name. I don't remember. So, who exactly it was. But somebody's doing really good quality. Marco has done negative reviews of stuff. I will tell you that. Not that often, and I suspect for the same reason. Marco, I don't watch Marco's. I like Marco as a, personality. I don't watch his videos very often anymore because he doesn't. A relatively small percentage of his content is about games that I am interested in. He does a lot of stuff with Euros and puzzles and stuff like that. And Marco also has like 50,000 subscribers, so and that's why. So, but I'm not watching videos on the color matching games and stuff like that. That's just not something I don't have time. So, Enemy Action Kharkov is coming soon. John, since you're in the chat, when is Enemy Action Kharkov coming? I know it's coming along. Very highly regarded, actually, follow-up to Enemy Action Ardennes. And Enemy Action Ardennes, I'll remind you, is a super high-value package in that there's like a solo game where you're playing the Allies, a solo play where you're game the Germans, and then a two-player game. So there's a lot in there if you are interested in the Battle of the Bulge or John Butterfield designs. And is there any designer... I'll ask this as a question. Is there any designer right now who is doing work in the solitaire wargaming space at the same level as John Butterfield? I am not sure that there is. If there is competition there, it is Gregory M. Smith, who is also doing very good work. But John Butterfield has been doing stuff since the 70s, too, so... Oh, that would be... I want to see the amateur boxing match between Bruce and Marco, actually. That would be hilarious. I remember this spat between them, actually. That was... I was amused by it. Yeah, Bruce hasn't done a video in several years, actually. He has done some really good videos, but he hasn't done very many of them. Ewan McGregor does play the Pope. The young Pope. Oh, the Pope Obi-Wan, or whatever it is. Matt, I remember that. We talked about that when that happened, actually. And I have a nuanced opinion on Wayne's review. On the one hand, he didn't like the game, and that's completely fair. I certainly don't think he was out to get anybody. On the other hand, the way that he did the review, it was kind of done. I think Wayne admitted this, more or less. It was kind of a stunt. And that's... Oh, shoot. I forgot to put out the posts. That's probably why we don't have as many people tonight. I automated some of the social media posts for the stream. But I can't automate them everywhere. So, Jerry White. So, as I recall, Jerry White's doing the Enemy Coast Ahead series. Those are really good. But there's only those two. And I think he's the designer of Atlantic Chase, which is new from GMT, and which is getting some very, very positive buzz. Mark Herman has certainly done some impactful solo stuff, but Mark is also not primarily working as a solo designer. I don't know if John Butterfield is either, but Mark hasn't done a solo design in a long time. So, although Ben Madison, that good call, actually, Tony. That's a very good call. Yeah, Ben Madison's doing some really good stuff from White Dog Games, mostly from White Dog Games anyway. I don't know what the R stands for. Actually, I think I did, but I don't know that. So, who quit BGG? Oh, I started watching, John. That's the series Dark. It's on Netflix. I started watching it. It's dark, dreary. I got about 4 episodes in, something like that. Sean O'Keefe, Skies of Storm Above the Reich, Skies Above Britain. Skies Above Britain, I think, is being done with Gina Willis, I think. Do I have that right? Bastogne from MMP. If we're talking about the SCS Bastogne, I mean, it's an SCS game. It'll work fine solitaire. SCS generally works fine solitaire. There's no hidden information or any of that. It's not a dedicated solitaire game. Not really what I'm talking about either. I'm talking about like actual solitaire games, not games that you can solitaire, even if they happen to be fairly good at that. Stigler is on. He hates solitaire gamers. He's dismayed that so many resources are going to solitaire-only games. Not so much games designed as solitaire games, but game devs slowed to allow for solo and bot features. A lot of people want those features. On the other hand, I mean, I'm pretty okay with just playing. I mean, if I'm going to solitaire something, and I think there are good reasons to solitaire games. Even if you have opponents, I think there's good reasons to solitaire games. There's also like a skill cap that you're going to run into just solitairing games, right? You're going to reach a point of, I'm comfortable with the rules now, but you're not getting any better because you're not seeing anybody else's ideas but your own. That is a weakness in solitaire play. There are certain games where I think it's more useful to solo stuff than others. I don't think it's particularly useful to solo SCS games, for example. It can be useful to solo OCS games because OCS games are logistics puzzles and it can help to work out the details. I mean, you're gonna encounter a point at which you can't you can't see anything else because you're only seeing your own stuff. But just working your way through that logistics puzzle the first time, that's something that you can do solo, and then you try to get opposed and see if it survives contact with the enemy. A lot of people. I mean, one of the first things that I think Pete and probably John can speak to this. One of the first things that people ask when a new game is announced is it solo friendly, or are there solo rules? So there's demand, regardless of what Stigler or I thinks about it. There is demand for solitaire rules. I agree with Stigler's point, which is that you are, generally speaking, going to have a better experience in most games opposed than you will solitaire. And I mean, in a lot of games, that difference is pretty big. So, for example, a game like Vietnam 65 to 75, right? Can you solitaire that? Sure, you can. There's tons of hidden information, though, and you're really losing a lot by solitairing it. And the fact is that nowadays with the internet and Vassal and all this stuff, well, that's pretty awesome, John. Thank you. I thank you, John's wife. You're just losing a ton playing that thing solitaire. And nowadays with the internet and Vassal and all these and BGG and all these other things, it's not that hard to find opponents. A lot of people have reservations about Vassal, but one of the things that we're seeing is, because we have just had one of our OCS guys move to Colorado, and he's got nobody out there. I don't know why, actually, because there is another OCS player who I know who lives just a couple miles from them. But he's playing Vassal now, and he's getting used to it. We did not get into, in detail, the FGA situation, by the way. A lot of people are hard up for space, and I had some people comment on the Korean War video that 4 maps is just too big, that they could fit the 2-map game, but they can't fit the 4-map game. That's because they smashed their table in frustration at having to clip these counters, too. And now they have a much tinier table. So I agree with Stigler on that, but at the same time, people want to see that solitaire ability. These are nationalist Chinese, okay. All right, I got a clipper here. I'm gonna end nip these out because I'm just friggin' dying here trying to pull these things off the sheet. I mean, generally, Vassal's got its irritants. I mean, playing Vassal this morning. I posted the picture on Twitter. I might show it later, although we only have about 40 more minutes. I posted the picture this morning about the cross-channel attack playtest that we are currently doing. And you know what? The module locked up on... I have plenty of RAM allocated to this thing. The module locked up on me about 4 times during today's session. And that's aggravating, right? I get aggravated with that too. But at the same time, Vassal brings a ton of benefits to the table. There are people who... I'm not under NDA or anything, so I don't see any reason. I mean, I shared a big image of the whole battle area today. So we're on June 19th, I think, and I am playing the Commonwealth, and, it's early on. It's not really that early, but, clearly a lot of work has already gone into it, but the play testing, I think, is pretty early, and I'm involved. A couple of the old stalwarts are involved. John Kisner's in there. Roland LeBlanc, who's the designer's in there. There we go. So it's a real solid group, and I'm very happy with what happened today. I tore a huge hole in the German line, and now we're having a double turn. We're in the middle of the double turn. I am super pumped about NATO, actually. It should be coming. It's like the next game in the line or something like that. I think the game currently in line is the Indian Operational Region, or whatever it's called. Folding tables. I feel like folding tables are actually the way to go. If I had like a huge garage or basement or anything, I would just get a set of 2.5 by 6 foot folding tables. I'd get about 6 of them, and that would give me enough room to put any reasonable game, set up any reasonable game. But you want them to be identical because they need to be the same height and all that. I mean, there's ways to fix that, but that's a pain in the that's a pain in the pooper. You don't want to deal with that. Oh, see, I've just murdered this counter with these clippers. Damn it. Oh, well. This is why I like my Oregon Laminations corner rounder. Just doesn't fit this thing. I guess if I am of a mind to do this, I guess what I could do not really, no. You could widen the slot on this, but you'd have to cut another one of these guides, and it looks like it's riveted in, which means you'd have to drill that out, and that we are thereby approaching the limits of my metalworking ability, which are not zero, but they're not that fancy either. Yeah, my definition of reasonable games includes a lot of really big games like Whiff and War in Europe and that kind of stuff. And on 6, and you can get the plastic folding tables that aren't super heavy or anything like that at Costco for like $40 a piece. Again, they're 2.5 by 6, and on 6 of them I could play anything I have, and I have a lot of big stuff. I mean, I could do Atlantic Wall. The Goss Atlantic Wall. I could do War in Europe. I could do whatever I wanted. So, you can do pool tables and stuff like that, but the thing with the folding tables is they're modular. So if you like, I don't need this right now, you can fold it up and put it in the closet, right? So at one point I would like at one point I would like to have that kind of space, but I don't right now. I do at this point my like social media outlet is in fact Twitter. I feel like I have a higher quality of interaction on Twitter than I do elsewhere. I am on Facebook, however, and I am at this time strictly limiting my interaction with Facebook to be gaming related things. So some mostly war games, but some RPG stuff too. So specific groups and stuff like that. The general feed I don't have bookmarked. I try to ignore it as much as I can because it's filled with garbage. Federation and Empire is not that big of a footprint, though. It's a big project to play it, but the footprint's not that big. Well, the physical footprint, the time footprint is huge. Iggy Critical, I ignore that, generally speaking. If assuming the tables are of uniform height, then you don't have to worry about it. You can just lay your maps down, put plexi over the maps, and tape the plexi down. I always tape the plexi down. And pretty much you're all set. If it comes to that, you can put like 4x8 sheets of some kind of hardboard or something like that underneath it. If there's a big like level gap or something like that, you do need to do that. If you're playing at a convention, often that needs to happen because the tables are not of uniform height. Kaiser Bill mentions that you can do it with cardboard, which you certainly can. Use it with foam core board would actually be a good idea. FS Gaming wonders why I'm not playing the Friday evening Long Roads to Gettysburg team games. Where is that being coordinated? Is that on the Discord server? Because I am on the Discord server. I'm on so many Discord servers I can't keep up with it. John, thanks for stopping by. Petro Pictures asked Federation and Empire. It is Starfleet universe. So think it's like a sort of licensed Star Trek spin-off strategic game of empires in conflict. So think Star Trek crossed with Empires in Arms, but not beholden to like the movie or TV show canon. It's a long story. Stuka Joe has a fabulous game space. I assume that's his entire house. Yeah, I don't know where my deluxe clipper is. It is a repaired deluxe clipper. I just don't know where it's at. So we're stuck with this. And now that I started with the nail clippers, I'm going to finish with the nail clippers, even if it's going to take me. After this sheet, which I have mutilated, like Jeffrey Dahmer, I will be... there'll be like another sheet and a half to do. I do play Starfleet Battles. I don't play it that much, but I reliably play it a couple times a year. I think I mentioned last time I had just gotten in with a local group that plays it once a month, and then the pandemic shut everything down. I tend to not tape the maps down. I tend to tape the plexi down over the maps, and then neither the plexi nor the maps will move. Sometimes you want to clamp the tables together, too, if sometimes that's necessary. Just so nothing moves around. That's why I say buy uniform tables. So if you're going to go buy that setup, just go to, wherever you want to go buy folding tables and just buy them all at the same time. Another thing I've seen people use as an underlay is that styrofoam insulation board that the miniatures people make terrain out of. And that's nice because it's nice and thick. Yeah, the GCACW Discord server is hopping. Everything's got their own Discord server. I mean, even I have my own Discord server too, which is not... eventually I'm going to change it. We're actually using it now. We're using it for our OCS Crimea playtest, which I can also talk about. That's a way less in-depth game than Cross Channel Attack. It's one map, and there's not a lot of pieces on the board when you start in September. I think it's September of 41, where you have like a German attack across the isthmus near Paracop, and it's kind of a shoestring offensive because a bunch of the assets that were supposed to have been available were pulled away at the last minute. All right, let's put guys in the trays. So there's very little that the Germans have to work with, and there's even less that the Soviets have to work with. The Soviets are somewhat dug in, but they're not that dug in, so it's less useful than it sounds. Let's see here. It may be possible, I don't know yet, it might be possible to fit this all in one tray. That would be nice. I think it's going to be 2 trays, however. That's my guess. Let's get out the adjustment tool so that I can squeeze them all into the trays. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Iggy Critical is playing Starfleet Battles this weekend. Awesome. And Half-Assed Gaming starts a new Long Roads to Gettysburg in a few weeks with the Jackson variant. It would be interesting to see exactly how that works. Soviets, nationalist Chinese. I am covered in counter clippings here. Covered. That's another thing that the I'd forgotten about that actually. That the nail clipper is bad about is clippings go everywhere. The organ laminations corner rounder, they pretty much all go in the box. I've got a box that like a box lid that I clip over, and for games that I'm using the organ laminations clipper on, pretty much all the clippings end up in the box. Not so with this thing. Doug mentions that is XPS foam extruded polystyrene. That sounds right. I think that's the stuff I'm talking about. Let's look at stream. Just check and see how we're doing here. Considering that I forgot to send out all the social media posts, so I'm sending them to several Facebook groups. I'm always reluctant to like be too pushy with that. I have several. So the go-to place for on YouTube for great campaigns of the American Civil War is Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials. I linked that channel in the video description for the Hood Strikes North unboxing video. I have done some like intro stuff as well, but Patrick is doing better work and far more exhaustive work than I did, which is why I abandoned the effort, because I'm like, oh, this guy's doing it way better than I was. So his whole channel is pretty much Great Campaigns of the American Civil War. There's a reason why that was my number one, game, though. I feel like I could get endless engagement out of that. Let's revisit that list before I forget. We left off with Napoleon's Last Gamble. The next one in the list is the Decision Games Atlantic Wall. I wanted there to be a D-Day game on that Desert Island Games list, and that's the one. Hell, on a desert island, I'll have plenty of space and time to play that giant Goss game. I want to say, boy, good question. It's not the biggest game I own in terms of map space. Singapore, Second World War Singapore is bigger. But it might be in terms of number of counters. It has 3,600 counters, and Singapore doesn't have that many. Singapore has a lot, but it's not that many. But Singapore, in terms of map area, is nutty. It is enormous. All right, I'm confused. There we go. So, yes, this is a relaxing 2 hours, and I'm glad that people enjoy it. And I'm very grateful that folks, come in and listen to me drone on or complain for 2 hours every week. So, Greg Campbell is setting up Atlantic Wall right now, which is fantastic. It's a lot to learn, but then once you start playing it, you're like, this is actually way easier than I thought it was. The new version of the rules helps a lot. Number 6 on the list is the Eastern Front, 1914 to 1917. That is the Der Weltkrieg East Front boxed set. And I picked that one. It was originally released as like 4 separate games because it has it's enormous map area. You could play the whole thing, but you can also play a variety of different sized scenarios that range in terms, in scale from Tannenberg all the way up to the whole East Front and various steps in between. So there's a ton of content in that. And that was a very important, based on ID Jester's criteria for this list, that was an important consideration. Number 7, that was number 6 on the list. Number 7 on the list is Pacific War from Victory Games. Soon to be Pacific War from GMT, but another one of the rules was that you had to actually have the game. And I don't have the GMT one yet because only one person does, and that's Mark Herman. Where I do have the Victory Games one. I still haven't played that, by the way, but I am pretty sure that's going to end up being my definitive game on the topic once I do. Next in the list is Guderian's Blitzkrieg 2 from MMP. This is the... and I picked this. It's not my favorite OCS game, but it's really big, but also has a bunch of smaller scenarios. It has a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do. It has lengthy periods of Germans going in and kicking ass and lengthy periods of Soviets going in and kicking ass. Both sides get a lot of time on both the defensive and the offensive. I really like that about GB2. So that's why I picked it more so than, say, Baltic Gap or something like that. And it's a big package, so I can get it's more of everything. One of the attractive things about Baltic Gap and what makes it my favorite OCS game is that it gives me everything that I get out of GB2 in a 2-map package instead of a 6-map package. But if I can only pick one, then I'll pick GB2. Number 9 on the list, 2 decision games on this list, by the way, is Imperium Romanum 3. This is also called Al Nafi's Imperium Romanum. It's the current version of Imperium Romanum available from Decision Games. It is not radically improved from previous editions of Imperium Romanum, but it is not disastrously wrecked either. So I picked that as opposed to the second edition, which I also... Actually, I don't think I do have it anymore. I think I gave it to somebody when I got the new one. Number 10 is Death Valley, Great Battles of the American Civil War from GMT, because that, again, is an enormous value-heavy package that contains small scenarios, large scenarios, medium scenarios, scenarios of a large variety. And so in terms of one-box value, I felt like of the Great Battles of the American Civil War series, I felt like it offered the greatest single-box value. All right. I appreciate both of your contributions, John Longshore and Stigler. So, where's the lid? Oh, it's back here. There we go. Let's break that. I have dropped this thing 4 or 5 times, and do not know how it is not totally destroyed yet. All right, so we're done with that for now. I do have all of the Der Weltkrieg stuff, and I actually like it a lot. It actually kind of reminds me of OCS, to be honest, in terms of the sort of puzzle-like nature of the movement. There's, I think, a lot to like there. Some people complain about the maps, but we found that in the course of a short game, you got used to that. So... I do not have any information on the new Fire in the Sky. That is from Phalanx, if I'm not mistaken, which means it's a company I'm not paying very close attention to. Not that they don't do stuff that's nice or worthwhile, but I'm just not paying super close attention. So we have about 20 minutes. So let me talk about what is coming up on the channel this week before I forget to get to it. We have... There isn't a hidden something underneath the Scotch bottle I'm going to pull off the shelf. Tomorrow we have an RPG video. It is a flip through of the new print-on-demand version of Griffin Mountain for RuneQuest 2nd Edition, which has been in the pipeline for a while. The RPG video that I'm working on, we might see it next week, but, don't count on it. It might be the week after. On Wednesday, I don't have a Wargaming video during the day, but in the evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I'll be streaming with Dan of No Enemies Here over on his channel. I have no recollection of what our topic was supposed to be. I will let Dan come up with something, or he'll make me come up with something 5 minutes before the show, and I will come up with something. And then on Thursday, we will have an unboxing of GMT's Nevsky, which is interesting timing because I'll be playing it this weekend. So, anyway. Jeff Beeler says, do I think 7th Armor is misrepresented in OCS cross-channel attack? Could the 131st be split into several battalions? I'm just starting to play with 7th Armored this turn, so it is a big formation, I can tell you that, and feels probably more powerful than it should. But a lot of those are adjustments that will be made as time goes on and during the playtest process. So at the moment, I have nothing serious to complain about in terms of 7th Armored. I can tell you that they were part of the armored spearhead that cracked the German line, though. Kyle Reese asks, what ACW game simulates the battle at Brandy Station? There is a game about Brandy Station specifically, and I don't remember which game it is. I also think that it's covered in Rebel Sabers, I think. Don't quote me on that either. So, I mean, I wouldn't be on social media either if I wasn't like doing this. Doing this is the reason why I'm on social media, because generally speaking, it's a low value pain in the ass. That said, there's a lot of good wargaming spaces on Twitter, on Twitter, but also on Facebook too. So, and on MeWe, which is another like social media platform, it's much smaller. It tried to step in and take over for Google Plus when Google Plus went away. Where are the Canadians? They're in there. They're in the mix. The Canadian Army, I think it's the 1st Canadian Army, is not yet on the map as of June 19th, which is where we are. You can't leave a message on, you can't message me on YouTube, but you can comment on the video, and I always check the comments. Ken mentions that Rose to Gettysburg has a Brandy Station scenario. That's true, it does. I wouldn't call that a satisfying treatment of Brandy Station if you're specifically interested in that battle, though. I haven't really seen the signs of the cicadas so far this year. That is supposed to happen this year, though, and we're in the belt to get those, too, so. Greg Mugen asks if he's never used Discord before, how hard will it be to attend the upcoming San Diego Wargaming Convention? Not hard. I do recommend that you install the Discord app rather than relying on the web version. So there's that. This reminds me... Well, that's irritating. All my software reset to some bogus device, and except for Windows. When I thought it was Windows that had reset my microphone away from the Yeti. It might have been that one of the cats yanked the cord and it got momentarily unplugged too. That'll happen. So, oh, John Longshore. It's all of them. I mean, in World War II specifically, it was probably India. Because remember that the British caused an enormous famine, and pretty needless famine in India during World War II. The Indians are still sore about that. So, and that's, kind of the tip of the iceberg on that too. But and also remember not to, boy, we're getting into murky waters here, but all that pales in comparison to the kind of things that the Belgians were doing in Central Africa. Pales and absolutely horrifying stuff that the Belgians were doing in Central Africa. So, don't forget that the British have always been very willing to die to the last Scotsman, or Canadian, or Australian, as the case may be. So yeah, we're doing Crimea and cross-channel attack right now. And cross-channel attack is something, I mean, I'm into D-Day games, so cross-channel attack is something I've been super pumped about for a long time. And I'm just delighted to be participating in that. And I'll show you the picture. So here's end of 19 June turn. The red line represents the dividing line between the British and American sectors. The British have a army dividing line too between two armies at this time. It doesn't look like the Cotentin is cut, but it actually is because it's cut along the coastal road. So the Germans could get around it if they really needed to, but I don't think they can actually get supply up to Cherbourg at this point. So Cherbourg is pretty much isolated. And we can see down here near the bottom, this was the 2 hexes deep of German defenders got cracked in a couple waves of attacks by the British. The Germans really should have pulled back out of these open hexes, and the British 11th and Armored pounded through that. One of the interesting things that the game does, where is the 49th? Somewhere. I don't know. They're here somewhere. This isn't the vassal, so I can't take these stacks apart. This is just an image. They're in here somewhere. They're in as their individual brigades, though. So these early big strong divisions that land on D-Day are broken down into individual brigades. So you'll get three regiments for the first infantry, the Big Red One, for example. So we have 3 allied players. We have one playing the Commonwealth. That's me. We have one playing the Utah Beach sector, and the other playing the Omaha Beach sector. So that's because the British keep drinking all their whiskey. Naval, unusually for OCS, naval is kind of a big factor. Now my understanding is that relatively quickly after the beachhead was established, and I think we've established the beachhead at this point, that most of the big naval assets were withdrawn, but at this point we still have several very large British and American battleships that are able to barrage as many as 5 hexes inland. We are, however, coming close to the point at which that will cease to be useful because we'll be more than 5 hexes inland. Now, as far as where this is in the development pipeline, it is my guess that this is at least 3 to 5 years out in terms of actual release. That's completely a guess, but I am probably right about that. And we've got a unhappy German guy stuck in strat mode, which I might just overrun with 7th Armored here. I can trace up through this whole thing because it's a chain of occupied hexes. And, I mean, we're going to probably isolate Lair and 2nd Panzer Division, at least parts of 2nd Panzer Division, maybe all of 2nd Panzer Division. The question is, that's a meme that I posted somewhere. Do we try and isolate Lair or do we try and encircle Khan? And I think I don't care too much about Khan if we're down here in the backfield. So Wise Guy History is doing, it's Nate from Wise Guy History is doing SPI Atlantic Wall. Those are very much worth watching. I don't know that I think it graphically looks particularly impressive. The counters, so this is not final art, man. This is like something Curtis whipped up. So I like it too, actually. I like the look of the bocage hexes. And there's light and heavy bocage here. Plus woods, and I think there might be 2 kinds of woods as well, but up here it's all just woods. So we have like army group or army HQs that have special functions. There's a lot of special stuff going on here. But I'm very much liking what I see so far. And there's all kinds of neat stuff. Wise Guy History does do tons of quality stuff, and I would recommend him for Channel of the Week, but he's got more than 1,000 subscribers. He seems to be well known at this point. How far south? The map that we're playing on for the scenario, which is not the whole campaign, I think it's 2 maps, 1 north and 1 south, but the whole thing is like 6 maps, I think. And it does attach to Beyond the Rhine. So you could, in theory, start with the Normandy invasion in June and play through the entire war, at least in this sector. You wouldn't get the southern France Operation Anvil stuff, but on this northern part of the Franco-German border area, clear to the end of the war. Iggy Critical, thanks for stopping by. So I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by. We've got just a few more minutes. Let me get off of this thing. I find that if I spray the compressed air, the cats scramble because they're used to getting shot in the butt with the compressed air when they're doing something that they're not supposed to do. Yard de bocage. That's a fantastic front yard idea, actually. All right, we're done with that. Don't forget to stop by the merch store. Anyway. Yeah, so, I mean, this map covers, like, that whole sector, including all of Brittany, so there's a lot here. This is just that's just the image that I peeled away. Video game wise, I actually have been playing Minecraft a little bit because it is totally mindless. And I can just go in and knock blocks down and put blocks up and stuff like that, and it's emotionally soothing. Other than that, I play a lot of survival games, actually. I was playing a lot of Conan Exiles, which is a much more high-stress survival game, but it's still pretty relaxing. I mean, I'm mostly a builder in these kinds of games. I have to kill stuff in there occasionally. In Minecraft, I play in peaceful mode, so I don't even have to deal with that. Let's rinse the glass out. Shipping to Canada is basically 100% the cost of the item. Sale video. I still have to finish the video. That's the delay with that, and I kind of got stuck working on the character creation video. So that's the delay there. I don't think that the Germans can really hold on to Caen here. I mean, they can, but there's a lot of British, and I didn't put the British reinforcements in from 19th, so I have to do that in the next turn. And that's the 15th Infantry Division and some kind of Canadian mechanized infantry. So there's a lot coming in. The British were very much confined here in this space. There's a lower stacking limit in this game than there is in other OCS games. I'm not sure I agree with that, but there you have it. And 6 REs, by the way. So, but I'm like I said, I'm having fun. Thoughts on Fortress Europa? It's dated, to be honest. That said, Fortress Europa is pretty solid. I mean, I do think it's dated. I think there's other games that do what it does more cleanly. But it's still pretty solid. It's still a pretty playable game. The new version from Compass is pretty nice. I had reservations about the counters. I thought the counters looked from the photos like they had a lot of wasted space on them. I've seen it in person, and they look fine. So I have no idea. So if you're, depending on where you are in Canada, I don't know how practical this is. If you want stuff from Compass, go to Compass Expo. It's all 50% off. You can save yourself the cost of shipping 3 or 4 orders to Canada by just going to Compass Expo and buying Compass stuff there. And they'll have their entire product line, which will probably be twice what they had when I was there last year, because they didn't have one last year. I was there the year before. And that's scheduled for November. At this point, it does look like late year events will be happening. They might be a pain. They might have I might have to wear masks and stuff, but those events probably will be happening. I did I get past 100? I don't know. I think I did. 104 is what I see. That number is sometimes different when I look at the analytics after the show. So we'll see. But I would like to hold fast. Kyle Reese mentions hold fast. So when I hear hold fast, I think of like the hold fast East Front type games from Worthington, not a Napoleonic first-person shooter on PC. On the other hand, that sounds like it might be neat. Not something I'd be willing to spend $40 on, but it sounds like it might be neat. So, one of our cats is currently being medicated, which of course stresses him out, stresses us out, stresses the other cats out. But then they get food treats after the after medication. So he's got a respiratory infection. Actually, that's true. If you live anywhere near the American border, you could hire an American to go to Compass Expo and then drive across the border to pick your games up when they get back. That might be worthwhile, considering the cost of shipping stuff to Canada. And I don't know what the border situation looks like right now. This channel is not the place to go for that info. So, definitely getting used to the new camera setup here. Definitely getting used to the lighting. I definitely should shave for the next one of these. And definitely, as I go in and out, the camera adjusts. I haven't really experimented with that. I still think this is the best lighting. Now, the light that I've been using this entire time from stream number 1 is this thing. I turn this on with this light, and it looks like absolute garbage. So, oh, he's fine. He was breathing heavy, so we took him. I'm like, oh, it was alarming that he was breathing very badly. So we took him to the vet. And didn't spend $1 million, but so anyway, I would like to thank everybody for stopping by tonight. We are just about to wrap up. If anybody has any very last minute questions, please pipe up immediately. Otherwise, we talked about what's coming up on the stream. So tomorrow, Tuesday, we have the Griffin Mountain flip through. Wednesday, we have the stream with Dan. I'm going to try to get one more video out about a Most Fearful Sacrifice before I have to send it back to Flying Pig. And on Thursday, we'll be unboxing GMT's Nevsky. At one point, I was not doing unboxing videos, and until I figured it out, then I should film them, and then if I need the content, I have it. And that's when I got Nevsky. And I think my Nevsky arrived damaged, and I had to get replacement boxes from GMT. So that was another thing that got in the way of filming an unboxing video. But a buddy of mine got a copy of Nevsky's, and he said, hey, you want this for an unboxing? And I was like, sure, I'll take it. So that's the video you're going to see on Thursday. And it's a very interesting looking game. And there's a new game in that series, the Levian campaign series, called Almoravid, that's coming out pretty soon. Kaiser Bill's going to Pennsylvania. So that's cool. Yep, I am not far from 270, actually. It's right down Broad Street. So it takes me a couple minutes to get there. Makes me wonder if I can go to the local game store this hour. I absolutely cannot. But, in better times, a couple of these local game stores are open till midnight. The Soldier used to be open till midnight. Now it's like 8 p.m., but that's because of the pandemic. I can't wait till we're done with this. I'd like people to behave in the manner in which we can be done with this foolishness as speedily as possible. That's what I want. Yes, there will be another game sale. It's just putting the video together is a big project, and I haven't managed. I've started filming it, but I haven't finished filming it, and then editing it will take probably 6 hours of editing. Well, at least last time it did, because the footage was garbage, and I had to repair it in some cases. So my Korean War unboxing video actually was 3 different unboxings stitched together. So that's another one of those things that took a lot longer than it should have. The National Road. Do I have them? I do have them. I will show you the other thing that came in this week. Thank you, patrons. Please check out the Patreon if you would like to support Ardwulf's Lair. Several years after I have obtained business cards. I posted a picture of these on Twitter. These came from Vistaprint. I could get 100 for $15 or 500 for $20. I got 500 for $20. this box of business cards will outlive me. Not this little case, but there's only like 30 in here. But the huge brick of business cards will seriously outlive me. So Akron should be voting to fix their horrible Badlands Beirut-like roads. That's what I would like to see Akron do. Oh, and it's supposed to be in the 90s this week here in Central Ohio, too. So that's all going to be tons and tons of fun. Okay, so I would like to once again thank everybody for stopping by. We did top out today at 104, very briefly, which is pretty good, like I said, considering that I forgot to send around most of the social media posts. And I'll be very curious to see if the scheduled ones actually occurred like they were supposed to as well. So there's that. But I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Again, please do check out the Patreon and the merch store so we can continue to make these little improvements to the stream. We'll be back next week with a topic to be determined. Perhaps it will be the worst gaming publisher ever. But I might come up with something else if I do. So I would like to thank you all once again, and until next time, happy gaming.